Marvel's Secret Invasion. I just watched episode 1, and how can I put this? Do the writers know what they've done? I can't think this was intentional from them, but from the subtext, Disney Marvel appeared to have written one of the most anti-immigration and anti-asylum seeker pieces of media I've ever seen. Why do I say that? Well, I'll try to get to it as fast as possible. In the context of the show, the story is set in the Marvel Cinematic Universe after the film Endgame and follows on in story terms from the film Captain Marvel, which I didn't watch because it looked awful.
Is that like a personal attack or something?
Well, possibly. Now, my understanding of the film Captain Marvel is that a group of aliens called the Skrull are refugees running away from a group of aliens called the Kree who were trying to massacre them, and the Skrulls were given asylum on Earth. Now, the Skrulls are green and a bit goblin-y, but are shapeshifters, capable of changing to look like a human at a moment's notice. They live for hundreds of years, are inhumanly strong, capable of tearing apart steel locks or throwing someone hard enough to shatter concrete, and Nick Fury decided it would be a very good idea to give the Skrulls asylum on Earth, and who could have guessed it doesn't go well. Fast forward a few decades, and a group of the Skrulls have been using their shape-shifting powers to set human governments against each other, start wars, and intend to irradiate the entire planet with a dirty bomb in a way that the Skrulls can survive, but will be fatal to all of humanity. The same humanity that offered them asylum. Humanity offered to share Earth with them, and many of the Skrulls decided in the end that they didn't much want to share. Did Disney not understand the concept of subtext? Do they not get how this version of their Secret Invasion story, one that is much changed from the original comic story, can be read as an allegory for the real world? The subtext seems very clear. This group are given asylum and then tried to slaughter everyone. They've entirely done this to themselves. The Skrulls of the comics were an actual invasion, hence the name. They were a galactic empire of slavers. Instead, Disney Marvel made them asylum seekers. Why have Disney done this to themselves? Is this intentional? Is Disney Marvel officially coming out as anti-asylum seeker? I can't think so. Are they that disconnected from the real world that they can't put the pieces together of what they've done? Was this ghostwritten by Nigel Farage? The changes that Disney Marvel have made to the story make it more nonsensical. The Skrulls turning up on Earth, wanting to conquer it, works fine as a simplistic story. The Skrulls being asylum seekers, however, that humanity says okay to sharing the planet with, is a real stretch. I reiterate, the Skrulls are shapeshifters, capable of changing to look like a human at a moment's notice. They can blend in and hide from you. They live for hundreds of years, are inhumanly strong, capable of tearing apart steel locks or throwing someone hard enough to shatter concrete, and Nick Fury decided it would be an awfully good idea to give the Skrulls asylum on Earth. Nobody, not even a politician, would think this group were not a potential threat. You can't even really call it a secret invasion. The people in power know the Skrulls are there, know what they can do, and still let them in. And this problem of messaging in Hollywood media, this keeps on happening. This thing where there seems to be a massive difference between what the writers of a film or series want to say and what their films end up saying in the text or subtext. There was the Rings of Power seemingly coming out as pro-genocide. I keep on running into stories that are on the surface supposedly feminist stories, but scratch the surface and the stories would-be feminist heroes are in reality monsters. They're attempts at a pro-feminist story that make feminism look terrible. So apart from that, how was it? Well, in Secret Invasion, humans including Nick Fury are working with friendly Skrulls to try and stop the bad guys. On the whole, it has a good cast. Samuel L. Jackson is back, now as an older version of Nick Fury, and sadly, he came across to me as maybe a bit bored with it all. It's like he was phoning in the performance somewhat, but it's still good to see him back. He's playing an older, more jaded and tired version of the character, which would be interesting in some way if it hadn't already been done to death. It's a cliche now. In short, from episode 1 of Secret Invasion, it's looking a lot like Nick Fury is going to get the whole Luke Skywalker, James Bond, Indiana Jones treatment. As a whole, the project's not terrible. The cast is, if anything, a bit too good for the project. Samuel L. Jackson, Emilia Clarke, Ben Mendelsohn, Olivia Colman, they all do fine, but the material doesn't really challenge them to do anything extraordinary. The story starts out with an agent who's been investigating the Skrulls' plots, being played by Richard Dormer, who was Beric Dondarrion in Game of Thrones, meeting with Martin Freeman playing Agent Ross again in order to show him evidence of the Skrull plot, and I knew right away that Ross was probably going to be a Skrull shapeshifter, which he was. A fight breaks out, Richard Dormer is shot, there's a chase. This all happens before the intro rolls. The show jumps right to the Skrulls being a threat to humanity, like the show is in an almighty hurry. That's one of the problems with it. The show is only 6 episodes. I can't imagine Samuel L. Jackson is cheap to hire, but episode 1 was 45 odd minutes long. I could have done with a scene or two up front of the Skrulls doing some of the things that the agent described, instead of it happening off camera and being told about it second hand. Alarmingly little happens in the entire episode. A lot of it's just scene setting. The show just jumps in with both feet into the Skrulls now being a threat to humanity. Some Skrulls have settled in Russia and want to get some dirty bombs to wipe out humanity and take the Earth for themselves. The action scenes on the whole are not bad, but do present some problems. For example, when Fury and Talos try to stop the Skrulls obtaining bombs, there's a fight between 2 Skrulls, where it demonstrates quite how strong they are. They can shatter steel and break concrete with their bare hands. And it's not a bad fight scene. The problem is that later, when there's a fight between Agent Hill, a human woman, and Emilia Clarke's young Skrull woman named Gaia, it's a problem. It doesn't work because every time Gaia hits her, she'd be shattering her bones. Unarmed humans could not meaningfully fight these things after what they've shown to be able to do. Gaia is Ben Mendelsohn's character's estranged daughter, being played by Emilia Clarke, who's working with the Terror Group, and for reasons not really explained in the show, Talos lets her walk away with a backpack full of bombs. Fury then tries and fails to stop the Skrulls using their bombs on a crowd of Russian civilians, and it's unclear whose side Gaia is on. She's acting like a double or triple agent, and the episode ends with Agent Hill being fatally shot by the Skrull leader. To sum up, so far, I didn't hate the show, but I didn't really love it either. It may be worth a watch if you like Marvel stuff, but don't be surprised in this day and age if the series does a The Last of Us and the entire of episode 3 is taken up by nothing other than a lengthy gay romance starring Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec.
Those look good. A big salty clam would sure go great with this heat. Maybe it's time we set a little trap for Crystal Cove's knob stealer.